What's up, guys? You know what? I had a chance to think about it all morning long, and I kind of wanted to do a little bit of a recap on the main event last night for UFC 247, which was Jones Vs Reyes, and you know, what the big things that a lot of people are like, man, Reyes got robbed and all this other stuff, and that you know, Jones didn't beat him, and I don't know, just a few things, I guess, maybe to see it from somebody who's another person's perspective. The way I see it, man, Reyes came out like a bat out of hell. Like the first round, did really well, was sticking it to John. John came out very flat, or at least it felt that way. But if you notice in a lot of John's fights, I mean, maybe I would say 3 of the last 4 or possibly 5. John has come out like, you know, the other guys, his opponents have always hit him, touched him up a little bit, but you know, he does really well, you know, as the fight goes on. And so that first round, you know, Dominic Reyes really took it to him, was hitting with combinations, was sticking and moving. John landed a couple of strikes in there that looked like they did a little bit of damage, but Reyes was fine. So, you know, in and out exchanges, Reyes wins round 1. The second round comes up, and you know, Dominic still comes out, he's firing. He looks, to me personally, it looked like he had a little bit of an adrenaline dump, where, like, you know, maybe it was just the bright lights, he was excited to be there. You know, that first round came out, you know, a couple of the guys that I was watching it with were kind of like disagreeing with me, but to me, I saw Dominic kind of breathing a little bit already, or he just looked like, holy crap, like, you know, this is barely the second round. And I was like, okay, well, you know, he still kept going, so I don't know. I was like, it was a good little debate we had there for that second round. But the thing is, John came out, John swung a little harder. You could tell that he was touching Reyes more. Reyes still outstruck him, but I feel with the damage that was done, or at least the way that the power to the quantity that Reyes was throwing, I leaned towards John Jones for round 2. And a lot of people were like, oh no, based on the numbers, that Reyes had to have won round 2. And you know what, man, I think you got to really watch the fight. It's not really about the numbers. I mean, unless they're ridiculously, like, you know, apart, where, like, you know, how can I put it? Like, in other words, like, if somebody only landed like 4 or 5 punches, the other person landed like 50. Obviously, that's gonna be a big deal. But in that, you can already tell that, okay, if that's what's going on, clearly, you know, you can tell who won that round. But I believe the strike counts of that one was 27 significant strikes to 21. So it was a bit closer. But the way I saw that one, I see John came back. He answered. Basically, I felt like John answered in the second round, and so it was 1-1 for me at that point. Third round, same thing. I see Reyes kind of breathing a little bit, but he's doing okay. That's what's going on in my head. And John comes out, and, you know, again, I figured that John was going to try to do some more. I figured he was going to try to wrestle a little bit more. In that one, John shoots a takedown. Reyes stuffs it. Reyes stuffs it hard, keeps John off of him, starts landing more. But you can say, okay, now you can see it's starting to wear on him a little bit. That man, that when John decides to commit for those double legs or those takedowns, man, it takes an immense amount of energy to fight that guy. Everyone who's ever fought him has said they are always surprised at how strong he is. And you know, so I think, and honestly, I give all the credit in the world to Dominic Reyes to be able to stuff that takedown and fight off of it. And then still, he from that, I thought that he did enough to win that third round pretty decisively. John kind of stuck him there. John hit him back, but, you know, Reyes had a bigger significant strike total. So I give the third round to Reyes. So right now it's 3-1. I'm sorry, it's 2-1. Dominic Reyes. Into the fourth round, you can tell, man, like, I mean, the whole time I just keep seeing Dominic Reyes, like, you know, I feel like he's just breathing a little bit harder. And this is championship rounds. Dom's never been there before. John's been there several times in his career. John's been there several times in his career, and everybody keeps saying that. That's a big factor, and I think it played a huge part because then, you know, John really stuck with the wrestling. John shot at him hard. and he went down. Reyes, to his credit, popped right back up, or was able to get right back up. Was not held down for very long. I mean, maybe seconds before he climbed up onto the cage, climbed up back up, and was able to separate. But I mean, that was a good two minutes out of that round. And that where, John shoots on him, gets him, and, they're going back and forth. But at that point, you can see that there's not a lot of power anymore behind Reyes' shots. And John looks like he just, it looked like the start of the fight for John, where he's just there hanging out. He's starting to put more pressure. He's taking command of the octagon. Reyes is definitely backing up a ton at this point. I think that was a real big thing where, Reyes was on his heels. He kept running into the cage. Little things like that where, I was like, man, this is going to be a tough one. And, the pressure was on Reyes till the end of the fourth, and then it was over. So right there, at this point, it's 2-2 for me. I got 2 for John, 2 for Dominic Reyes. I feel that everybody really has, in the rounds that you've won, they have significantly won them for a way. Like, it's kind of hard to argue. I think round 2 was a little bit arguable for each guy. Like I said, we had a little bit of like I said, it was power versus quantity going into the 5th round. So it's possibly 3-1 Dominic at this point, or 2-2, which I favor 2-2. Okay, 5th round coming in. Dominic Reyes looked exhausted. Like he was tired. I guess he was tired. I shouldn't say exhausted because he was still there, but you could tell that all the fight he had on him in the beginning has definitely gone down a lot. Like he was still moving. That was awesome to see that he wasn't staying still like most of John's opponents do. Like in that 5th round where John's already shifted into his finishing gears. And Reyes kept moving around, man. John couldn't lock him down, and once again, actually, John started off that round, man. He knew his coaches were telling him hey, we got to get this done. We need this round. We know we need this round, and man, so he shoots hard for a takedown. It was a wild one too. He sold out completely for it. Grabbed Reyes, was able to come up, grab the takedown. It looked like this one took a little bit longer for Reyes to get up, but he did, which I thought was big, and I feel like that should really prove points, when guys can stand back up, or when guys stuff takedowns. That's gotta factor into the fights, man. It really does, because honestly, it does factor into the fight, man. If you got a dude who's wrestling hard and he keeps getting stuffed, and that's gotta be points for the other guy. I feel like a lot of commissions and judges kind of ignore that, and it's a little frustrating for those guys, because some of those guys, they have really good anti-wrestling, and but unfortunately for this part, Dominic's anti-wrestling was kind of falling through, and it's just fatigue, man. Nothing, not that. I mean, Dominic fought hard this whole fight, and then all of us, the thing is too, instead of throwing combinations at this point, Dominic's throwing maybe 1-2s, not really getting much in. I know he caught John once or twice with a hook or an uppercut there, but there just wasn't the same power, so the damage was very minimal at that point. And then you just see John jumping in there, and it felt like everything John threw had some snap on it, or had some power, and just hit him, and you can kind of see Reyes wearing down as the round went on. But man, Reyes didn't give up, and at the end, you just kind of saw that, John got the takedown. He didn't do much with it because Reyes popped back up. But the fact that he was able to get up to the ground, I feel it always will be big points in anybody's eyes. I do feel like if you're not down, I kind of see they should kind of maybe adapt other rule sets to it. Like the ADCC rule sets, you got to be down for 3 seconds. Or actually, I mean, I think most jiu-jitsu formats, I mean, I know that's not wrestling, but you got to be down for so long before you get the points. I mean, I don't know much about wrestling, but I know you got to pin a guy down 3 seconds or something like that to get the win. That might be WWE shit, but I mean, I'm just saying, I don't know much about wrestling. But you definitely got to be able to hold people down, and maybe it should be like that before it means anything, because I mean, we've seen, I know that one time Daniel Cormier finally, after taking 4 rounds of an ass whooping by John, he finally grabs John, he high crotches him, boom, puts him on the ground, John pops right back up. In my opinion, I was like, hell yes, he got a takedown. But now looking at it out here, being a little less biased on it, that should it have counted? Probably not. You should have to be able to throw somebody down. But the other thing is too, man, we should actually see a scoreboard in this. We should see the judges' rounds. Because honestly, you could have been able to see, oh, so-and-so, you have it down here, so-and-so, like, you could only guess to what happened. That controversial ref, somebody told me it was something like Sulk. I read Solis on one of them. I could be wrong, I need to go back and look at that, but man, I don't know how guys do that, like how guys get away with that, like how is that not like illegal in their sport? Like, we're not illegal, but how is that not like how can you not penalize that? I mean, even Dana White criticized it. I mean, I didn't see the prelim fight that happened, but apparently there was a prelim fight, one on the early prelims on Fight Pass where, you know, one fighter lost every round, but yet on this certain judge's scorecard, he had him 30-27. Makes no sense at all. You know, and this one here, you know, clearly, like I said earlier, I thought it was 3. Oh, I should have finished. I had John winning the 5th round. 3-2 John is what I scored it in the end. You know, and a lot of people were like, oh, it was 3-2 Reyes or whatever like that. And you know, you should have to lock in your score. I mean, I know these guys have a pin and they have the piece of paper and that's how they throw in the judges' scorecards, but like, you should be able to hit a button, boom, lock it in, and everybody see it at home. Maybe not the fighters, maybe not the arena, but like, we should be able to see that and like have exactly why you put it. Okay, so and so landed so many strikes, so many takedowns, so many leg kicks. You know, what the damage means to you, maybe, I think is a good factor. Like, I mean, obviously there's people that are going to be biased, and I mean, you're supposed to be, it's your job as a judge not to be biased. But, I mean, the thing is, man, like, you know, certain things, like, man, like I said, that second round, you know, yes, Dominic was out striking him, but the times that John hit Dominic, you know, you just felt way more power. Like, you just saw like the power was coming off, and it was almost like every time Dominic got hit, you were like, oh shit, like, oh man, is that like is he hurt? Is he okay? And there was a couple times where in the first and third where John looked like he got stunned, but like, you know, he shook it real quick, but he definitely got caught by a few uppercuts and a few strong hooks from Dominic. And I definitely see this one running back if John can hold on to the title, which more than likely he will. But I mean, depending on who's coming up, you know, I can see John walking through his next two opponents. But what I think people are starting to see is the wear and tear of a hard, long career, which I know it hasn't seemed that long, but man, I mean, he's had some grinding years. I mean, he's had a tough run where, you know, he got into a lot of trouble. I mean, he's only 32 years old. I mean, technically, he's still in the prime of his career. He could probably push that streak to 20. I think he broke it yesterday with 14 consecutive title fights and wins, I think. But, well, I don't think it was consecutive. It shouldn't have been consecutive. I think it's just title fight wins. Because, of course, he had the whole thing with where he was stripped of the title, and then he wanted to win it back from Daniel Cormier, and yada, yada. But, you know, man, I think, I mean, the names that are coming up that he could possibly fight, I mean, I mean, of course, we said the same thing about Corey Anderson when he fought Johnny Walker. We were like, oh, I think Johnny's going to walk right through him. And then you know, that apparently made Corey very angry, and he starches Johnny Walker. You know, but I mean, I don't think Johnny Walker's done yet. He definitely moved camps recently to TriStar, which, I mean, that is a big step up in training camp from where he was before. So, I mean, I'm very curious to see how an athlete of his caliber will do out of that gym. You know, George St. Pierre, Rory McDonald, the list goes on. So there's those things, and you know, and then we also have Jan Blachowicz. That's another guy. That's the guy who knocked out Luke Rockhold. You know, that was that little hype train where we were like, oh, Luke Rockhold at 205. He's gonna be the next guy to give John problems. And man, I love Luke Rockhold, man. I really respect him as a fighter. You know, but man, that dude, I think he's hung it up already. But if he hasn't, man, he's been knocked out pretty viciously in his last 2 or 3 fights. And you know, man, he's got way better things outside of fighting, in my opinion. Like, he's got an awesome modeling career apparently that he's still doing, and you know, he's got a lot of things. I mean, he's a great jiu-jitsu fighter or / wrestler. Like, he still competes. He competed recently against I believe it was Nicky Rod. I think Nicky Rod handled him, but you know, it's a guy who doesn't really focus on his grappling as much. But you know, that's neither here nor there. But you know, he's got a lot of options still later to stay in a competitive field if he wants to. As far as, like, you know, a combat sport is concerned. But you know, man, as far as MMA though, I mean, I always thought, man, you know, because I've seen other guys. Like I saw Josh Berkman. I think it was last year, still trying to compete like at LFA, or I think it was another smaller. There were smaller promotions, and you know, these guys are still getting knocked out. And I mean, it's tough. You think, oh, that guy's good. He's a little old, but you know, he's one of the best, and he was one of the best in the UFC. But you know, I think after a while, you know, I mean, hey, Father Time is undefeated, man. It just is. Like, and could he have probably won that fight? True, but when you're fighting these young lions that are coming up, and or you fighting that one gatekeeper who's there, and you know what, he never wanted to go. You know, he knows in his head, he's smart enough to know, like, I won't do well in the UFC, but I'm making $50,000 a fight here with my sponsorships, and you know, whatever. I'm gonna hang out here. You go fight that dude. You know, he wants his money and he wants all his stuff. He's not doing it for glory. You know, he's like, I'm doing it for my checks and my family, and or you know, whatever, just a good living. You know, these guys, you know, that's a different thing. And honestly, it's funny because I remember even saying back when we started seeing fighters from the UFC head to Bellator, and you know, Benson Henderson was a vivid one. I remember even telling everybody, like, he had just made his move to 170, and you know, he was like, man, you know, I said to myself, I was like, oh, look who's about to run the table at 170 at Bellator, because those guys aren't good. And he ended up getting his butt whooped by Korshkov for the 170 title. He got instantly thrown into the title picture, which is given. I mean, you know, you had the one big accusation from the UFC. He was still doing well. He had just won, I think, 2 fights in the 170 division in the UFC. So I mean, I could see why they wanted to push that in there. And you know, he was just too small, man. Korshkov was a bigger dude and was able to keep him at bay. And you know, I think Bendo like threatened him in one round for a little bit, where he almost wanted him with probably with some grappling, but and from what I see, you know, that was pretty dominant. And then, you know, so he was up and down. He went down to 55 for a little bit, and then one of the Pitbull brothers, I think was fighting him, and then he blew out his. He think the Pitbull brother got hurt, or I forget what. But anyway, so like it's not always the thing is where I think MMA, the levels had definitely risen even in the smaller promotions. And I mean, like, and these, I mean, promotions with decent, like, you know, decent companies that are like, you know, maybe not UFC tier, Bellator tier, or 1FC tier, but like, you know, like maybe B or T tiers where, you know, they still have some, they're on Access TV, or they're on like some local stuff, but they have some production value. They have a decent ring, you know, everything's clean, like, you know, like, you know, they're not doing huge arenas, but they are definitely a promotion that, hey, like, you know, they're feeder promotions. And you know, so like, even though they're there, like, you know, you see that talent coming up, and you know, it's just a thing where it's like, hey, you already made it to the top of the mountain, you got your belt, you beat one of the, you had at the time probably the best 185 title matches to the date. And you know, that was what, like, I mean, a lot of people were like, man, this is gonna be a good one. And it was a good fight, man. I mean, that's because Luke Rockhold was like was sick on antibiotics at the time, and he beat Chris Weidman, and it was a great fight. And you know, it would have been too great if you know, if he would have just you know, taken Michael Bisping seriously and kept his title. But you know, he got knocked out, and ever since then he kind of was never able to bounce back. He might have won one fight since then, but you know, that's just how it's gone. And just saying that, so like, you know, just going back to John Jones, just, you know, like, I don't see really anybody. I mean, I see him getting a few challenges, and one of the big points yesterday was that eventually the tough guys will get you. And man, Dominic Reyes is not going anywhere. That guy, I don't know. I mean, I think he's definitely top 5. I mean, he's gonna be top 5 for a while. Like, I mean, he may skid. I don't know if they give him Corey Anderson, or I'm not sure what they're gonna do with Corey next. But you know, like, you know, those guys, they're like Jan Blachowicz too. I mean, that guy's a scary dude. You don't take him seriously, he's gonna knock you out. And you know, so you know, there's a few things that could go good for these guys, and we'll see what comes on. But I definitely think these guys are going to fight again. I hope Reyes evolves a little bit more, and I hope John stays good, because I want to see that fight again, and I want to see a good one. Last night's fight was a great fight. But yeah, no, I mean, all in all, Dominic Reyes was not robbed. I feel that John wanted outright, excuse me. And you know, and then we go on to the next one, man. We see who's up next, and John Jones is still, unfortunately, our 205 champion. But I'll tell you what, the fights have gotten closer. Thiago Santos is still on the men. I think that guy will definitely be a problem for John. That dude just had crazy power. You know, crazy power, and you saw even the dude had a torn ACL, or he ripped up a couple things in his knee that day. Still was throwing hard. I mean, I don't know why people were wondering why John wouldn't wrestle. And I mean, honestly, if John wrestles, man, he's one of the best in the business at that. I mean, he's just super strong. His technique is there. I mean, he's just a natural fighter. And you know, he's done well in jiu-jitsu. He's done well there. Like he did a couple, like, you know, I mean, he didn't do IBJJF. I would love to see him do Nogi IBJJF just to see how John would do. You know, or even like that, or one of the big Nogi promotions, EBI, or just to see, man. I mean, what he could do, because man, the way his limbs are and how strong, like, you know, he's quite a specimen. And I know not that John did anything new, but I mean, I love trying to break that down, thinking like what are the possibilities for this guy. But well, I'm already home from my drive from work, and I'm ready to get this one off. I'm happy I did one. And you know, tell me what you guys think in the comments, debate me. We'll see what's up. Maybe I'll do a rebuttal video a little later. But thanks for listening, and we'll see what happens on the next UFC card.